The stone struck Celeste's shoulder with enough force to send her stumbling backward, her walking stick clattering against the wooden planks of Iron Horse Creek's main thoroughfare. Cruel laughter erupted from the group of young men who'd been trailing her since she'd left the general store. "Dance for us, blind girl," Tommy Morrison jeered, hurling another pebble that grazed her temple. "Show us how you navigate without those useless eyes." Blood trickled down Celeste's cheek as she pressed herself against the rough bark of an oak tree, her heart hammering against her ribs. At 23, she'd endured 17 years of this torment since the fever had stolen her sight as a child. But today felt different, more vicious, more dangerous. "Please," she whispered, feeling for her dropped walking stick with trembling fingers. "I haven't done anything to you." "Your very existence is an affront," spat Billy Cartwright, the blacksmith's son, a burden on decent folk. "My pa says you're cursed, and curses spread." The circle of tormentors tightened around her. Celeste could smell their unwashed bodies, hear their heavy breathing, feel their malicious intent like a physical weight pressing down on her chest. She'd nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. That's when the war cry split the air, the sound primal, fierce otherworldly scent ice through every man's veins. Even Celeste felt her breath catch, though something deep in her soul recognized it not as a threat, but as salvation. Hoofbeats thundered against the packed earth, growing closer with each heartbeat. The men who'd been so brave moments before now scrambled backward, their courage evaporating like morning mist. "Apache!" Someone screamed. A magnificent painted horse skidded to a halt, mere feet from where Celeste stood frozen. She heard the rider's moccasined feet hit the ground with practiced silence, felt his presence like a force of nature, wild, untamed, and utterly protective. "You touch woman again, you die." The voice was deep, accented with the musical cadence of his native tongue. But the English was crystal clear and deadly serious. Celeste heard steel whisper against leather as he drew his knife. "Now you go. Fast. Or I show you Apache way of dealing with cowards who harm defenseless." The bullies fled like startled rabbits, their boots pounding against the dirt as they disappeared down the street. In the sudden silence that followed, Celeste became acutely aware of her rescuer's breathing, steady and controlled, and the subtle creak of leather as he moved closer. "You hurt?" His voice had gentled, though she could still hear the underlying strength in it. I'm fine," she managed, though her legs felt weak as water. "Thank you." A warm, calloused hand touched her elbow with surprising gentleness. "You shake like leaf in storm, not fine." She felt heat rise in her cheeks. "You're Apache," it wasn't a question. "I am Coda Windwalker, son of Chief Nalnish. And you are a woman with courage of mountain lion, to walk alone when enemies surround." Something in his tone respect rather than pity made her straighten her spine. "I'm Celeste Moreau." Celeste pronounced it carefully as if tasting something precious. "Star of the morning." It's a fitting name for one who brings light to darkness. 3 weeks had passed since the encounter, but Coda couldn't purge the memory of the blind woman from his thoughts. He'd watched Iron Horse Creek from the ridge above town, telling himself he was merely scouting for potential threats to his people. Yet his eyes always sought one figure, the slender woman with hair like autumn wheat, who moved through the streets with quiet dignity despite the cruelties inflicted upon her. Today, watched her emerge from the church after what the white settlers called Sunday service. Even from his vantage point, he could see how others avoided her, stepping aside as if blindness were contagious. His jaw clenched as he witnessed a well-dressed woman deliberately guide her young daughter away from Celeste's path. Unable to watch any longer, Coda descended the ridge. He found her by the creek that gave the town its name, sitting on a fallen log with her face turned toward the sun. Her fingers worked steadily, weaving what appeared to be a basket from river reeds with remarkable skill.
"Oh, you're..."
"Hands see what your eyes cannot," he observed, settling beside her with the fluid grace of his people. Celeste startled, nearly dropping her work. "Mr. Windwalker, I didn't hear you approach." Apache learned to move like wind through grass. "But I not want to frighten you." He studied her profile, the determined set of her jaw, the gentle curve of her lips, the way sunlight caught the gold. Threads in her brown hair. You make beautiful thing. Her cheeks colored prettily. It's just a basket. I weave them to trade for supplies. Pastor Williams says idle hands are the devil's workshop. Pastor Williams, fool, Coda said bluntly. Your hands create beauty. That is gift from Great Spirit, not devil's work. A smile tugged at her lips, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. You're very kind, Mr. Windwalker. Coda, he corrected. And I speak only truth. My people believe gifts should be honored, not hidden away like shameful secrets. She set down her basket, turning to face him fully. Though her eyes couldn't see him, he felt exposed under her attention, as if she could perceive things others missed. Why do you come to town? She asked. Your people and mine? We're not exactly friendly. Some of your people fear what they not understand, some of my people same. He picked up a smooth river stone, turning it over in his palm. But I see a woman with strength of buffalo, gentle as doe, treated worse than mangy dog. This offends me. I'm used to it, she said quietly. Should not be used to cruelty, should be treasured. The words came out more passionately than he'd intended. In my tribe, we believe Great Spirit gives each person special gift. Your gift strong, you feel truth in people's voices, sense their hearts without seeing their faces. This wisdom, not curse. Tears gathered in her sightless eyes. No one has ever said anything like that to me before. Then your people more blind than you. He stood, extending his hand. Come, I show you something. She hesitated only a moment before placing her trust in his outstretched palm. Her fingers were small and warm in his, extending an unexpected jolt of awareness through him. He led her to a grove of cottonwoods where the creek widened into a small pool. The afternoon sun dappled the water through the leaves, creating patterns of light and shadow that danced with each breeze. Sit, he instructed, guiding her to a moss-covered boulder. Close your eyes and tell me what you hear. I always have my eyes closed, she said with gentle humor. He chuckled, a rare sound that seemed to surprise them both. True, then. Tell me what you feel. She tilted her head, listening, water flowing over stones. Wind in the leaves, cottonwood leaves, they whispered differently than oak. A red-winged blackbird calling to his mate, and ... Shh. She paused, a soft wonder creeping into her voice. Peace. I feel peace here. This sacred place for my people, where spirits of river and wind dance together. He settled beside her, careful to maintain a respectful distance. You feel it, truth, a harmony. They sat in comfortable silence as the afternoon waned. And for the first time in years, Celeste felt she belonged somewhere. The attacks began 2 days after Coda's second visit to town. Celeste was hanging wash behind her small cabin when she heard the approaching hoofbeats. Her landlord, Jeremiah Colt, owned the ramshackle property on the outskirts of Iron Horse Creek, far enough from the main settlement that her presence wouldn't disturb decent folk, as he'd put it when she'd begged for somewhere to live. You been consorting with savages, girl? Colt's voice carried the sharp edge of whiskey and malice. Folks are talking. I don't know what you mean, Celeste replied, though her hand stilled on the wet shirt she'd been pinning to the line. Don't play stupid with me. Half the town saw you talking to that Apache buck down by the creek. You know what happens to women who lay down with redskins? Heat flamed in her cheeks. I've done nothing wrong. We merely spoke. The backhanded blow sent her sprawling into the dirt, her basket of wet laundry scattering around her. Pain exploded across her cheek as blood filled her mouth. Allier Colt snarled. No decent woman talks to savages unless she's already ruined. Maybe it's time this town was rid of its burden. Terror clawed at Celeste's throat as she heard him unbuckle his belt. She tried to crawl away, but he grabbed her ankle, dragging her back through the dirt. That's when the arrow punched through the wooden fence post beside Colt's head. The shaft still quivering from impact. Release her. Coda's voice carried across the yard like winter wind cold, deadly, final. Colt's grip loosened as he scrambled to his feet. You got no right to interfere, Redskin. This is white man's business. Another arrow thudded into the ground between Colt's boots. This time, Coda materialized from the tree line like an avenging spirit, his bow still drawn with a third arrow nocked and ready. Woman under my protection now. You touch her again, I feed your heart to crows. Even drunk, Colt wasn't fool enough to test the Apache warrior's resolve. He stumbled backward, pointing an accusatory finger at Celeste where she huddled in the dirt. You're marked now, girl, marked as a savage's whore. Don't expect mercy when the town decides what to do about you. He rode off in a cloud of dust and curses, leaving Celeste shaking in the sudden silence. Coda was beside her in an instant, his hands gentle as he helped her sit up. How badly hurt. She touched her split lip with trembling fingers. I'll heal. But he's right about one thing. I'm marked now. They'll never leave me be. Then you come with me. The simple statement hung between them like a bridge over a chasm, one that once crossed could never be uncrossed. Back to your people, she whispered. They would accept a blind white woman. My people judged by strength of spirit, not color of skin or ability of eyes. He cupped her bruised face with infinite care. But I'd not ask you come as refugee. I ask you come as my woman, my wife. The world seemed to tilt sideways. Can't mean that. Apache do not speak false words in matters of heart. His thumb brushed away a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. From first moment I see you, something in my soul recognize you. You are other half of my spirit, Celeste. I know this truth deeper than knowledge, stronger than doubt. I'm nobody, she protested. Blind, poor, unwanted, you are a woman who faces cruelty with dignity, who creates beauty with her hands, who shows courage when others show only fear. You are a woman my heart calls to, even when my mind say it foolish. His voice dropped too barely above a whisper. You are a woman I love. The last word fell between them like a stone into still water, creating ripples that would change everything. Love you too, she breathed, the admission torn from her very soul. God help me, I love you too. When he kissed her, gentle despite the warrior's strength in his hands, Talist finally understood what it meant to come home. The Apache camp sat nestled in a valley protected by red stone cliffs. Invisible from the main trails yet positioned to see all approaches, Celeste felt Coda's horse slow to a walk as they entered the village and immediately sensed the curious eyes upon them. They're staring, she murmured against his shoulder, where she rode behind him. They curious about. Woman brave enough to leave her people for love, he replied softly. Do not fear. My mother Ayana already prepare lodge for us. She sees with heart, like you. Children's voices called out in Apache, their tone excited rather than hostile. Dogs barked, and she heard the soft conversations of women grinding corn and tending fires. The smells were different. Here sage and cedar smoke instead of coal. Wild herbs instead of boiled cabbage. Leather and earth instead of the cloying sweetness of too many people living too close together. Coda returns. Coda. An elderly voice called in English, clearly for her benefit. And he brings the star woman Ayana saw in her dreams. They dismounted before a large teepee painted with symbols. Celeste's fingers longed to trace. An older woman approached. Her moccasined footsteps, nearly silent on the packed earth. Mother Coda said formally, This is Celeste Moreau. Celeste, my mother, Ayana Windwalker. Weathered hands cupped Celeste's face, and she found herself looking into eyes she couldn't see, but somehow felt. The examination was thorough but kind. Spirit spoke true, Ayana said in accented but clear English. You carry starlight in your soul, daughter. Welcome to the Windwalker Lodge. Thank you, Celeste managed, overwhelmed by the simple acceptance. I know this is unusual. Love is never unusual, interrupted another voicemail, deeper, carrying absolute authority. Chief Nolesh approached, his presence commanding even without sight to confirm it. My son chooses with warrior's heart. In wise man's mind, if you make him strong, you are welcome among us. A younger woman's voice piped up, bright with curiosity. Can she really not see anything? How does she know where to walk? Shalakota warned his sister gently. Show respect. It's all right, Celeste said, smiling despite her nervousness. I've been blind since childhood. I listen, feel, smell my way through the world. In some ways I see things others miss. Show her, Ayana commanded her daughter, lapped her. Take her to the women's circle. Let her feel our ways. What followed was unlike anything Celeste had ever experienced. The Apache women, rather than treating her as a curiosity or burden, immediately began testing her abilities. Could she identify different plants by touch and smell? Could she tell the quality of clay by texture? Could she hear the subtle differences in water sources? Through their delight and her own amazement, she excelled at each test. Years of relying on senses other than sight had honed abilities they valued highly. When she accurately identified a poisonous root mixed among safe ones using only smell, the women exchanged approving glances. "You will teach our daughters," declared Nasha, the medicine woman. "These skills precious for people who travel light and must know every detail of the land." As evening fell, Celeste sat beside the fire in what was now her lodge, listening to Koda's quiet movements as he arranged their sleeping area. The reality of her situation was beginning to sink, and she'd left everything familiar for a man she'd known mere weeks, joining a people whose language she didn't speak and whose ways were foreign to her. "You have regrets," Koda observed, settling beside her. "Not regrets," she said carefully. "Fear, perhaps. I know nothing of being an Apache wife. What if I fail you? Fail your people? You not fail?" His hand found hers in the firelight. Apache marriage, not about perfection, is about to becoming one, sharing strength where other is weak, growing together like two trees with roots entwined. He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "In your world, woman must be what men want. In Apache world, woman must be what Great Spirit intended. You are wise, skilled, brave. These things matter more than whether you can see sunrise or know traditional songs." "What about the ceremony?" she asked. "Surely there are customs tomorrow, if you willing. But know this Apache marriage require more than white ceremony. When we join is for life and beyond. Our spirits bound together, walking same path through this world and next. You ready for such commitment?" The weight of his words settled around them like a sacred blanket. This wasn't just about escaping persecution or finding safety. This was about binding her very soul to a man whose culture, whose entire world, was as foreign to her as hers was to him. Yet when she thought of his gentle hands on her face, his fierce protection, the way he saw strength where others saw weakness, the answer came without hesitation. "Yes," she whispered, "I'm ready." The wedding ceremony began before dawn, as the first stars faded from the desert sky. Celeste had spent the night in Ayana's care, learning the sacred rituals through touch and whispered instruction. Her wedding dress, if it could be called, that was unlike anything she'd ever imagined. A soft, deerskin tunic decorated with beadwork that told the story of Koda's lineage. Moccasins so perfectly fitted they felt like extensions of her. Feet. The beads speak of his victories, his wisdom, his worthiness as husband, Yana explained, guiding Celeste's fingers over the intricate patterns. "Now they speak of you too, for you will share in all his honors." The entire tribe had gathered in a circle around the sacred fire pit. Celeste could hear their quiet murmurs of approval as Koda's sister led her to the center, her hands steady. "On Celeste's arms, do not fear," Shala whispered. "The spirits smile on this union. Even old Nasha says your coming was foretold in the smoke visions." Chief Nolnish's voice rose over the gathering, speaking first in Apache, then translating. For Celeste's benefit. The words spoke of the eternal dance between earth and sky, the sacred balance between masculine and feminine, the way two rivers joining became stronger than either alone. When Koda took her hands, she felt the calluses earned through years of hunting and warfare, the strength that could draw a war bow or gentle a frightened horse. But she also felt the slight tremor that betrayed his emotions. This mighty warrior was as nervous as she was. "The Great Spirit has many names for love," Nasha intoned, her aged voice carrying the weight of generations. "Oh, there is love of parent. For child, love of warrior, for tribe, love of hunter, for the land that sustains him. But rarest is the love that joins two souls across all barriers, making them one being with two hearts. This is what we witnessed today." The ceremony continued with rituals Celeste could only partially understand, the sharing of sacred corn pollen, the blessing of the four directions, the exchange of gifts that symbolized their future life together. Coda placed something in her hands, a knife with an intricately carved handle. Made for you, he said quietly. Handle carved with stars, your namesake hand mountain peaks, where eagles soar free. You are no longer ground-walking woman who hides from cruelty. You are sky woman now, sister to eagles. In return, she offered him the wedding shirt she'd sewn in secret during her final nights in the cabin, working by firelight and memory. Her fingers had found the soft hide Ayana provided, and she decorated it with designs that came from some deep intuition, symbols that meant nothing to her but somehow felt right. When he saw it, she heard his sharp intake of breath. "Oh, you know these marks?" he asked wonderfully. "These are signs of my spirit animal, my vision quest, my true name among our people. I never spoke these things to you." "I don't know," she admitted. "My fingers just ... knew what to sew." Asha cackled. With delight, the spirits guide her hands. This woman's sight goes deeper than I, as she sees into the heart of things. As the sun crested the canyon rim, painting the world in gold and crimson, Chief Nalnish bound their wrists together with braided sinew. What the Great Spirit has joined, let no earthly power tear apart. You are one flesh now, one spirit, one future. The celebration that followed lasted until the stars emerged. There was feasting, dancing, storytelling, and gifts from every family in the tribe. But what moved Celeste most were the children, who approached shyly, wanting to touch her dress or hear her speak. They showed no fear of her blindness, only curiosity and acceptance. "In our tribe, different is not less," explained Peyu, a young mother who'd lost her own leg in a riding accident years before. "We believe Great Spirit makes each person exactly as they are meant to be. Your blindness is part of your medicine, your special gift to the people." As the evening wound down, Coda led her away from the celebration to their lodge. Someone had scattered flower petals inside, and she could smell the sweet cedar smoke that would purify their new union. "Are you happy?" he asked, and she heard the vulnerability in the question, the great warrior seeking reassurance from his new bride. "I didn't know it was possible to be this happy," she answered truthfully. "For the first time in my life, I feel like I belong somewhere." "You belong with me," he said fiercely, drawing her into his arms. "Always with me." When he kissed her first kiss as husband and wife, Celeste felt something she'd never experienced before. Complete and utter certainty that she was exactly where the Great Spirit intended her to be. 6 months of marriage had transformed Celeste from a frightened outcast into a valued member of the Apache tribe. Her gift for identifying plants had made her Nash's most trusted assistant, and her ability to weave had produced blankets and baskets that other tribes sought in trade. But it was her growing skill as a storyteller that truly endeared her to the people. "Tell again about the white woman who danced with wolves," little Kira begged. Blet, settling cross-legged beside the fire where Celeste sat with the other wives, working on winter preparations. "Not tonight," Celeste laughed, her hands never pausing in their task of grinding dried berries into powder. "Tonight, I want to hear about your day hunting rabbits with your grandfather." The easy domesticity was interrupted by the thunder of approaching horses. But these weren't Apache ponies. The hoofbeats were too heavy to rhythmically uniform. Soldiers. Koda appeared at her side instantly, his hand warm on her shoulder. "Army patrol," he said grimly. "Large one." Chief Nalnish emerged from his lodge, his voice carrying clearly across the camp as he gave quiet orders in Apache. Celeste didn't need to understand the words to recognize the tone preparation for potential conflict. "Mrs. Moreau?" The voice that called out was crisp with military authority. "We know you're here. Come out peacefully, and no one needs to be hurt." Celeste's blood ran cold. They'd come for her. "How did they find us?" she whispered. "Does not matter," Coda replied, his voice deadly calm. "You're Apache now. We protect our own." But Celeste could hear the nervous shuffling of horses, the metallic clicks of rifles being readied. 20 or more soldiers by her count. Even Apache warriors couldn't prevail against such odds without terrible losses. "I have to go to them," she said quietly. "No." The word was absolute. "You are my wife, my responsibility. And these are my people now," she replied firmly. I won't let them be slaughtered because of me." She rose despite his restraining hand. Her chin lifted with newfound dignity. "I'm coming out," she called, "but I want to speak to your commanding officer." The man who rode forward had a voice like aged whiskey in authority. "Captain Marcus Hawthorne, ma'am. I'm here to escort you back to civilization." "This is civilization, Captain," she replied, surprised by her own boldness. "I'm married now, a member of this tribe. I've broken no laws. Your association with hostiles is causing considerable unrest in the territory," Hawthorne said diplomatically. "Certain citizens have expressed concern about your situation." "Citizens like Jeremiah Colt?" she asked sharply. A pause. "Among others?" "Ma'am, I'm not here to debate the politics of your situation. I have orders to return you to Iron Horse Creek for your own safety." "My safety?" Celeste laughed, the sound bitter. "I was beaten, terrorized, and nearly assaulted in that town. I'm protected, valued, loved." "Where exactly is the danger, Captain?" Coda stepped up beside her, his presence radiating quiet menace. "Woman speaks truth. She's free to choose her own path, not according to territorial law," Hawthorne replied stiffly. "A white woman living among hostiles can be considered a captive, requiring rescue, regardless of her stated preferences." The legal trap was elegant and crushing. Celeste felt the ground shifting beneath her feet as she realized the horrible choice being forced upon her return to a life of misery and persecution, or watch her new family fight a battle they couldn't win. How many must die for one woman's freedom? She asked quietly. "That depends entirely on how reasonable everyone chooses to be," Hawthorne replied. Chief Nolnish spoke in rapid Apache to his warriors, who began moving into defensive positions around the camp. The children and elderly melted away toward the hidden canyon passages, following well-rehearsed emergency protocols. "You cannot take her," the chief declared in English. "She chose our ways, married my son in sacred ceremony. To break this bond is to declare war on our people." "Chief Nolnish, I respect your position, but I have my orders." Hawthorne's tone suggested he genuinely regretted the situation. "Stand down, your warriors, and no one needs to die today." Celeste felt the weight of every gaze upon her Apache and soldier alike, waiting for her decision. In the end, the choice was simple. She couldn't purchase her own happiness with the blood of innocence. "I'll come with you," she said, her voice steady, despite the breaking of her heart. "No." Coda's anguish cut through her like a blade. "I will not let them take you." She turned toward him, wishing desperately that she could see his face one last time. "My love, if you fight them, you die. If you die, part of me dies too. Me do this. Let me protect you for once." Her hands found his face, memorizing the strong jaw, the high cheekbones, the lips that had whispered such sweet words in the darkness. "This is not goodbye," she whispered fiercely. "I will find a way back to you. I swear it by everything sacred." The journey back to Iron Horse Creek felt like a funeral march. Captain Hawthorne had proven surprisingly decent, allowing her to ride, rather than binding her as a prisoner, but the knowledge that she was being torn from everything meaningful in her life made every mile agony. "For what it's worth, ma'am," the captain said as they made camp the first night, "I've seen arranged. This marriage business before usually doesn't end well for anyone involved." "This wasn't an arrangement," Celeste replied quietly. "It was love. Real love. Maybe so. But love doesn't carry much weight in territorial courts." That night, alone in her regulation army bedroll, Celeste wept for the first time since leaving the Apache camp. She'd gained a family only to lose it, found her true self only to have it stripped away by men who saw her as property to be recovered, rather than a person with rights and choices. But by morning, grief had transformed into determination. If the law saw her as incapable of making her own decisions, she would prove them wrong in the most public way possible. Iron Horse Creek greeted their arrival with a mixture of curiosity and hostility. Word had spread that the savage's whore was being returned to civilized society, and opinions were sharply divided on what should be done with her. "She's been contaminated," declared Mrs. Pemberton, the banker's wife, loud enough for everyone in the general store to hear. living among heathens, doing God knows what unspeakable things. Decent people shouldn't associate with her. Maybe a spell in the territorial asylum would cure her of this madness, suggested Doc Morrison, Tommy's father. I've heard of treatments that can restore a woman's proper thinking. But not everyone shared these harsh views. Mary Chen, the Chinese laundry owner who'd always shown Celeste small kindnesses, approached her at the boarding house where she'd been installed under unofficial house arrest. I brought you tea, Mary said softly. And news, if you want to hear it. What kind of news? Your Apache husband? He's been seen on the ridge above town every sunset since you returned. The man's grieving something fierce. Celeste's heart leaped. He's here? Close enough? Word is, he's waiting for some kind of sign from Yuzum Wei to know you're safe and what you want him to do. That night, Celeste requested permission to attend evening service at the church. Pastor Williams, eager to display his success in reclaiming a lost soul, readily agreed. What he didn't anticipate was how profoundly 6 months among the Apache had changed the woman who stood before his congregation. Brothers and sisters, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the packed sanctuary, I come before you not as a captive returned, but as a woman transformed by love. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, but she continued steadily. You see my blindness as a curse, but I have learned to see it as a gift. Among the Apache, I was valued not despite my condition, but because of the unique abilities it gave me. I was wife to a great warrior, daughter to a wise woman, teacher to children who looked at me with wonder rather than pity. Blasphemy. Someone shouted from the back. She's been corrupted by heathen ways, have I? Celeste challenged, turning toward the voice. I learned to create beauty with my hands, to heal with plants grown by God's own design, to find peace in prayer and meditation. I learned that love transcends the color of skin or the language of worship. If these are corruptions, then I am proud to be corrupted. Pastor Williams attempted to regain control, but Celeste's words had touched something in the hearts of those who'd known her before, the quiet woman who'd endured abuse with dignity, who'd asked nothing of anyone yet given help whenever possible. Apache taught me that Great Spirit God makes each person exactly as they're meant to be. My blindness isn't a punishment or a burden. It's part of my purpose, my gift to offer the world. And my love for Coda Windwalker isn't a madness to be cured. It's the most sacred thing I've ever experienced. She paused, letting her words sink in before delivering her final statement. I am Celeste Windwalker, wife of a great Apache warrior. And I will not be held against my will by people who mistake cruelty for righteousness. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by Mary Chen's voice from the back of the church. She's right, the Chinese woman declared, rising to her feet. I've seen how this town treats anyone different. The girls found happiness in family. Who are we to destroy that? One by one, others began to stand. The blacksmith who'd always nodded respectfully when Celeste passed. The elderly widow who remembered kindnesses shown during her husband's illness. Even some of the younger people who'd grown tired of their elders' prejudices. The law may say you can hold her, called out Jake Harrison, a ranch hand who'd once helped retrieve Celeste's scattered possessions after one of Tommy Morrison's attacks. But it doesn't say we have to support it. Within the week, sentiment had shifted dramatically. Captain Hawthorne found himself in the uncomfortable position of holding a rescued woman who clearly didn't want rescuing. In a town increasingly opposed to keeping her, the final push came. From an unexpected source, Territorial Judge William Ashford, who arrived to review Celeste's case and ended up spending an evening in conversation with her. Mrs. Windwalker, he said after hearing her story, the law is meant to protect people, not imprison them. If you're certain this is your choice, if you're willing to sign a legal declaration of your intent to live among the Apache as a free woman rather than a captive, I see no reason to hold you further. On a crisp October morning, exactly 1 month after her forced return, Celeste walked out of Iron Horse Creek as a free woman, but she didn't walk alone. Coda waited at the town's edge, mounted on his painted horse with a second mount beside him.
You
came for me, she breathed, hardly believing it was real. Always come for you, he replied simply. You are my heart. Where you go, I go. Where you stay, I stay. As they rode toward the hidden canyon that held their real home, Celeste reflected on the strange journey that had brought them together. She'd been mocked for being blind, treated as a burden and a curse. But in losing her sight, she'd gained something far more valuable: the ability to see with her heart, to love without conditions, to find strength in what others saw as weakness. And in Coda, she'd found not just a husband, but a partner who valued her exactly as she was a man, who'd seen starlight where others saw only darkness. Behind them, Iron Horse Creek fell away into memory. Ahead lay the Apache camp, where children would run out to greet them, where Ayana would embrace her returning daughter, where the evening fire would welcome them home with stories and laughter. No regrets? Coda asked as they climbed the familiar trail toward home. Celeste smiled, her face turned toward the warmth of the afternoon sun. In the distance, she could hear the Apache children calling out joyfully as they spotted the returning riders. She could smell the sage and cedar smoke of home fires, feel the desert wind that carried the songs of her adopted people. Only one regret, she said, reaching across to squeeze his hand. That it took me so long to understand what I was truly meant for. And what is that? He asked, though she could hear the smile in his voice. To love and be loved exactly as I am. To belong. Somewhere not despite my differences, but because of them. To be your wife and mother to the children we'll have, and grandmother to their children after that. As they crested the final ridge and the Apache camp spread below them, Celeste felt the last piece of her heart settle into place. She'd been blind since childhood, mocked and scorned by those who should have protected her. But in losing her sight, she'd gained everything that truly mattered. She was home. She was loved. She was exactly who the Great Spirit had intended her to be. And as Coda helped her down from her horse and into the welcoming embrace of their people, Celeste Windwalker knew that their story was just beginning. The children who would gather around her fire in years to come would hear the tale of the blind woman who could see what others missed, the white woman who became Apache, the mocked outcast who became a beloved matriarch. They would learn that love recognizes no barriers, that strength comes in many forms, and that sometimes what the world sees as a weakness is actually a gift waiting to be unwrapped. But most importantly, they would learn that everyone, no matter how different, how scorned, how seemingly broken, has a place where they belong. A person who will love them exactly as they are, and a purpose that only they can fulfill. In the gathering dusk, as the evening fires were lit and the familiar sounds of home surrounded her, Celeste Windwalker smiled and knew that her greatest adventure was not behind her, but stretching out ahead a lifetime of love, family, and belonging with the warrior who had seen starlight where others saw only darkness.